How on earth does a modern, cultured nation like Germany fall into the hands of someone like Adolf Hitler? Today, we're going to unpack that. We're going to look at the perfect storm of events that led to one of the most catastrophic rises to power in all of history. So let's start with the big one, the question that really frames this entire story. It's not just about history. It's a question that honestly still haunts us today. How does a government supposedly built by the people, for the people, just crumble from the inside out? Okay, so our story kicks off not with some big dramatic bang, but with a total collapse. We're in Germany, right after World War I, and the country is just broken. It's a nation completely on its knees. So, with the war lost in 1918, the old German Empire, the Kaiser, all of that was gone. And in its place, this new, fragile democracy pops up, called the Weimar Republic. But, it wasn't born into some big celebration. No, it inherited a country that was absolutely drowning in defeat and humiliation. Right out of the gate, this new government faced an impossible task. The Allies forced them to sign the Treaty of Versailles, and this thing was brutal. It stripped Germany of its land, its colonies, its economic engines like coal and iron. It gutted their military. And maybe worst of all, the War Guilt Clause forced Germany to take the blame for the entire war. For Germans, this wasn't peace. It was a deep national shame. And then came the bill. £6 billion in reparations, a number so huge it was basically designed to crush them, to make sure Germany stayed economically weak for decades to come. This figure became this powerful symbol of the raw deal so many Germans felt they got. So they can't pay? What do? The government just starts printing more money. And the result was an absolute catastrophe. We're talking hyperinflation. It wiped out the life savings of the entire middle class literally overnight. I want you to imagine your money becoming so worthless, you needed a wheelbarrow full of cash just to go buy a loaf of bread. It's insane. But the problems weren't just economic. The new democracy was built on shaky ground. The Constitution itself had some fatal flaws. Proportional representation meant that dozens of tiny parties got into parliament, making it impossible for anyone to get a majority. That led to constant, weak, collapsing governments. But even scarier was Article 48. This was basically a backdoor that let the president declare an emergency, suspend all civil rights, and rule by himself. It was a kill switch for democracy, just sitting there, waiting for someone to flip it. And into this absolute chaos, this perfect storm of humiliation, poverty, and political mess, steps one man. A man who sees this national crisis not as a disaster, but as the opportunity of a lifetime. Adolf Hitler, he was a mesmerizing speaker. And he wasn't offering complicated five-point plans. Nope. He offered simple, powerful promises. He looked the German people in the eye and told them exactly what they were desperate to hear. I will tear up that shameful treaty. I will bring back our national pride, and I will put everyone back to work. He was selling hope to a hopeless nation. And just when it seemed like Germany might be getting back on its feet, bam! The 1929 Great Depression hits the world. And it hits Germany harder than almost anywhere else. The economy just collapses all over again. By 1932, a staggering 6 million Germans were unemployed. That is a massive, desperate audience, ready to listen to his radical message. And just look at the results. It is mind-boggling. In 1928, the Nazi Party was a joke, a tiny fringe group with less than 3% of the vote. 4 years later, in the depths of the Depression, they surged to become the single largest party in Germany, 37%. That's how terrifyingly fast fear and despair can completely reshape a country's politics. So now Hitler has popular support. And this is where we enter the final act for Germany's democracy. This is the story of how a republic was legally taken apart from the inside in just over a month. The speed is just breathtaking. January 30th, the old guard conservatives, thinking they could totally control him, get the president to make Hitler chancellor. Less than a month later, the German parliament building, the Reichstag, mysteriously burns to the ground. Hitler immediately blames the communists, declares a national emergency, and pushes through the Reichstag fire decree. And just like that, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, all basic civil rights are gone. A few days after that comes the final nail in the coffin, the Enabling Act. So let's just break that down, because it's a chillingly effective playbook. Step 1. Use the democratic system to get your foot in the door legally. Step 2. Seize on a crisis, in this case the fire, to whip up fear and suspend everyone's rights. And Step 3. Use that atmosphere of fear to pass a law that lets you bypass parliament entirely. Game over. Democracy was dead. So, with total power in his hands, the truly dark ideology that drove the whole Nazi movement was finally unleashed. But what did they actually believe? What was the point of it all? At the absolute core of Nazism was this twisted, ugly theory about a racial hierarchy. At the very top, they believed, was the master race, the Nordic Aryans, and then everyone else was ranked below them. But at the very bottom were Jews, gypsies, and other minorities. They weren't just seen as inferior, they were seen as an anti-race, a poison that had to be physically removed from the nation to make it pure. And this whole racial ideology was tied to a very specific goal: Lebensraum, living space. Hitler believed that this so-called superior German race needed more land, more resources to expand. And that meant conquering their neighbors to the east, places like Poland and Russia, and then enslaving or just flat out eliminating the people who lived there to make room. The list of enemies was long. Yeah, it started with political opponents like the communists, but it grew and grew to include anyone who didn't fit their narrow, twisted definition of a pure German. This ideology of hate created a society that was built from the ground up on persecution. Okay, in our final section, we're gonna see how this ideology wasn't just some crazy talk in a book. It was a detailed, terrifying blueprint for war and for genocide. Now, Hitler did create jobs, just like he promised. He launched these massive projects, like building the famous Autobahn highways. But this whole economic recovery, it had a hidden purpose. Every new factory, every new road, every single job was secretly geared towards one thing: rearming Germany and preparing for the massive war of conquest he had always planned. Hitler basically tested the world, step by step, to see what he could get away with. He pulled Germany out of the League of Nations, he marched troops back into the Rhineland, which was supposed to be demilitarized, he annexed Austria. And each time, the world kind of wrung its hands and protested, but ultimately did nothing. And that just emboldened him for the next, bigger, more aggressive move. The invasion of Poland in 1939, that was just the final step. One people, one empire, one leader. This was the powerful, seductive slogan they used to justify it all. It was this call for all German-speaking people to unite under one massive empire, led by one all-powerful Führer. It was nationalism twisted into a weapon for conquest. And this is where the story reaches its most horrific end. The war provided the perfect cover for the Nazis to carry out their final solution. Their ideology of hate wasn't just theory anymore. It became the state-sponsored, industrial-scale murder of 6 million Jews and millions of other innocent people in the Holocaust. And so we end right back where we began. The death of Germany's democracy wasn't an instant event. It was a process. It was fed by economic desperation, by national humiliation, by political chaos, and of course by the seductive promises of a leader who offered easy answers and easy people to blame. And this story serves as this permanent, horrifying reminder to always ask ourselves, what are the warning signs and are we watching for them today?